Okay. Welcome everybody here in Vienna to this Equitable AI Fireside Chat with Mary from Cisco. Mary, welcome. How are you doing?
Hi. Hello, David. How are you?
We'll discuss that another day. Mary, we want you and I when you and I were thinking about this. We really wanted together to think a little bit about how AI can reshape how we design and implement accessible technology. And really thinking about how we work towards having inclusive systems that work for everyone. So with that in mind, we talked a little bit about how assistive technology is just technology. But what do you think, when we say assistive technology, what do you think we're actually talking about? And why does it still sit apart from technology more broadly?
Yeah, and if before I answer your question, if you don't mind, I'll do a quick intro. So I'm Mary Fernandez Arias. I use she, her pronouns. I am a brown woman, curly hair. I'm wearing a rather fabulous burgundy dress today. And I am the engagement lead for accessibility at Cisco. And so to kind of think about this whole topic, David, I wanted to say that to this amazing audience that some of what we'll discuss today might feel a little bit provocative, might feel a bit, future thinking, intellectual. But I think it's important to ask the questions as we are shaping the future, because AI is already getting to decide who gets to work, who gets to create, and who gets to inform where we move, right? And so what I really want to do here is challenge us and make sure that we are thinking about these key questions that we're going to talk about. So shall we talk about assistive tech?
Yeah. So what do you think we're talking about when we talk about assistive technology and AI? And why do we see it as something different from technology?
Yeah. So when I was preparing for this chat, I actually looked up, where did this terminology of assistive tech come from? So it actually came from legislation. So assistive technology was first included in American legislation in 1988 in the Tech Act, and it was defined as devices or systems that increase or improve functionality or capabilities of people with disabilities, right? So I think at the time it made sense, because when we think about historically where we were as a community, we were fighting for the right to exist, to have the things that we needed in our lives, to be able to even choose where we went, how we did it, right? To be independent. But what has happened, I think, is that language of assistive technology versus just technology has now become cultural and has really embedded in our mindset and reinforces this assumption that disabled people are exceptions.
Yeah.
That we are not the default user, that we're not the core customer, that we're not the people that shape mainstream, right, innovation. But take it even further, it even impacts how we live every day. So I think about when I go to my mother's house. She has a gorgeous home, bought it 3 years ago, and all the appliances are new and shiny and all touchscreen. I literally could not independently even cook, like turn on the oven, until somebody came in and connected it all to Alexa, because I didn't have the attention span. And the tension there is that innovation that benefits everyone is exciting, but accessibility, when we start thinking about it from an accessibility perspective, it's all of a sudden seen as difficult. It's seen as, oh my goodness, we have to do this extra thing. And that double standard really impacts how we think about technology. So the issue isn't, do we have technology? The issue is that access is not treated as innovation, and that disabled people are not treated as just customers, right? but we're seen as the beneficiaries, the recipients of technology that somebody maybe thought of, and we'll get a little bit more into that. And we need to shift that. We need to really eliminate that idea that disabled people are only beneficiaries of systems. We need to think about technology that adapts to people rather than creating another silo, another thing that only benefits disability.
And I think it was really interesting that you started off with a policymaker's definition of assistive technology, because I think there's a problem that when we go down that definition, we encourage policymakers, funders, public services to say, well, we only fund the technologies that are designed specifically for people with disabilities, rather than those that are inclusive. And I always loved, when I first went to work in the Middle East, we were trying to find a good definition for assistive technology. And the initial definition we came up with vaguely defined, translated as machines that help us. And I always thought, that's a pretty damn good definition. It may not be very specific or tight, but it's pretty good. But things are changing, and you touched upon it. And do you think that AI as a particular theme gives us a real opportunity to move from designing technology that people have to adapt to towards technology that increasingly adapts to people through what we sometimes call hyper-personalization, understanding their needs and adapting intelligently as a result?
Yeah, and for our audience, I want to be super inclusive and first talk about, because sometimes we get a lot of these terms thrown around and we're not even sure what we're talking about, right? So hyper-personalization, at a very basic level, and I'm not a techie, but at a very basic level, what it means is that we are going to combine data that we collect across different systems. So behavior data, kind of what you're doing, where you are, all this data already exists, right? And analyze that. And with the layer of Gen AI and machine learning, we can then adapt your experience depending on what you're doing, where you are, and even what you might need next, right? So adding that predictive element. So that's what we mean by hyper-personalization, and it's a very broad term. But now let's talk about the present, right? And how accessibility and access actually gets built. And when we think about accessibility being embedded in products and experiences, it's actually a very fragile chain of decisions that have to be made. And it boils down to, did somebody somewhere who has many, many priorities decide that my access is important as a disabled person? And when we think about that really means that accessibility depends on someone remembering that I, as a disabled user, exist. And more than that, right, that they even have to think about, what does every disabled person need? And we get into we need to get to a baseline. And that's how we think about accessibility currently. And so what happens with hyper-personalization is that instead of being kind of this static set of standards, AI has the potential, and this is potential, of creating systems that can adapt in real time. So one example, if I am reading a web page, it could do things like adjust the interface, how much text is there, adjust the reading understandability, right? What kind of words am I getting? Can it simplify it to me? And based how I'm engaging with it, it can even adjust the pace of say captions, how quickly they're appearing. And so accessibility and access then becomes more dynamic and more personalized. And that's powerful. That's an amazing thought for the future. But this is a complicated topic. And at the same time, that system that can optimize how I interact with something, it can also potentially, we get into, can it track if I'm using a screen reader, a magnifier, any kind of tech in my computer that demonstrates that I have an access need? And then where is that data going to be used? And how will it be used to discriminate against me? So AI isn't inherently inclusive. It is not inherently unbiased. I said this the other day. AI is not neutral because it's based on what people think. and the things that we hold in our mind. But hyper-personalization can only work, I think, if the people that depend on it get to shape it and get to design it. Otherwise,
and I think that
yeah.
when we talk about hyper-personalization, it's not just about I can't see. It may be hyper-personalization also says, well, where are you? So in terms of the setting, that may change the way we won't need information presented. It might be that it needs to be tactile rather than audio because you're in a really noisy cafe or whatever. Or it might be that the specific tasks that you need to do suit one solution. You maybe don't need a full screen reader to recognize your banknote at the same time. And of course, so the tasks, the technologies that are available to you, it's more than just about, I can't see, therefore I need to use this. And if that's true, if AI could enable hyper-personalized access, what does that mean in terms of our thinking about design? And I've had a number of people say to me recently that they get asked to give their feedback about being disabled and what that means for design. And they sort of almost want to say, there's only one thing I'm expert in, and that's me. I can't talk for everyone who can't see. I can only really talk about me. And do you think that's fair? Is that a reasonable position for people to take?
I think that's a very reasonable position. And I want to tell you a very quick story. So when I was in high school, I actually took Java my senior year. And I didn't know at the time that basically I would not be able to do it with JAWS. I wasn't able to edit my simulations. I wasn't able to really write code in a way that was independent. And what that told me, David, was that I wouldn't be a programmer. And I was 17. And, I don't know that I would have been a programmer, but it closed the door before I even got to explore the room and make that decision. And so I think the question for me about design and design tools is that the way that the world is set up right now, it's not even that disabled people have a seat at the table. We don't, right? When we think about who are the software engineers, who's getting to create these technologies, how many multiple disabled technologists do you know that are creating things, right? How many people with disabilities are you seeing talking about the AI era right now and are now creating those groundbreaking technologies? The irony of it all is that it's been the needs of disabled people that have built the capabilities that AI uses. It can see, it can hear, it can read because of disability.
And I'm really interested. We talked yesterday in a session about the growth of vibe coding and the idea that a person with disability could describe the interface or the tool that they need, and AI codes that technology for them, and then they test it. How close do you think we are to the idea that hyper-personalization says, take out the middleman, use the technology to design the technology?
I think we're close, and the thing is that we're moving so fast, but our mindsets and our systems haven't changed, right? The way that we think about disability hasn't changed. So my question to the audience is, if people with disabilities create groundbreaking technology, are we going to be given that credit? Or is ableism going to stand in the way and say, well, how useful is this, right? I think it's also about, these are tools, but tools can't change minds. We have to change our minds, and we have to expand the narrative to include disability, to include it as part of the human experience. So yes, I think that there is so much goodness happening, and I'm excited for younger people who are going to get to experience this and not face those barriers of discouragement, but at the same time, how are they going to be treated at work by their peers, by their colleagues?
And I think what's really going to be important, just to summarize, is that people with disabilities need to be that human in the loop when they ask something to design something to meet their needs, to test, to review, and to make sure that it works for them. We are coming to the end, which is unbelievable. I can't believe we got through it all already.
I know, this one part.
Next year, we'll carry on this discussion, Mary.
Well, thank you so much, David. It's been a pleasure.
Always. Thanks so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.